back. So going down to mythology here, Apollo appears often in the myths, plays, and hymns as Zeus's favorite son. Apollo had direct access to the mind of Zeus and was willing to reveal his knowledge to humans. A divinity beyond human comprehension, he appears both as a beneficial and a wrathful god. So he had access to the mind of Zeus, the son of Zeus. So if Zeus is Satan, and Apollo, at the time when Apollo lived, when whoever that was at the time who lived, he would have been the physical, the human manifestation at the time of Zeus, who would have been his father, who would have been Satan. So I guess that's what's being said there, is that he was the Antichrist of the time. He was the human that had direct access to the mind of Satan. It's kind of like, we have access to God because we have his spirit in us. So that would be the same with Apollo, I guess. Now going down to Plato's conception of soulmates. A long time ago, there were three kinds of human beings: male, descended from the sun; female, descended from the earth; and androgynous, descended from the moon. So we've talked about before how in Genesis chapter 6, there was the angels came down, the sons of God, the angels, they came down and had children by the daughters of men. And I've talked about in the past how, I think it was the last video I really went into it, how that seems to be played out. You've got the sky gods, the masculine sky gods coming down, the feminine earth gods. So I just thought that was interesting, Plato's conception of soulmates. And then just making a note there, the descended from the moon, the androgynous descended from the moon. I thought that was very interesting because I haven't seen that a lot before, so I'm not going to say anything more, just make note of that. So we've got, the male from the sun, female from the earth, and androgynous from the moon. It's just interesting. Consorts and children, extended list. So as you can see, Apollo had a lot of consorts and children. And note he had some male lovers in there. Because of course Satan is gay and a pedophile and into bestiality. And we know this because the people who have his spirit do all of these depraved things. So we know that Satan is a pedophile and all of the bad depraved things that people do, that's Satan. So interesting to note that, how that plays out in the list of Apollo's consorts and children. So in the family tree there, it's just interesting to note, Apollo has a family tree like the Sumerian gods we looked at. It's interesting to note the top of the tree, who's at the top of the tree, it's Uranus and Gaia. So who is Uranus? He is, meaning sky or heaven, was the primal Greek god personifying the sky and one of the Greek primordial deities. Uranus is associated with the Roman god Caelus. And then Gaia. In Greek mythology, Gaia, land or earth, Gaia is the personification of the earth. It's one of the Greek primordial deities. Gaia is the ancestor and mother of all life. The primal Mother Earth goddess. She is the immediate parent of Uranus. Interesting. It's a weird, a bit different there, but from whose sexual union she bore the Titans, themselves parent of many Olympian gods, and the giants, and Pontus, the sea, of whose union she bore the primordial sea gods, who equivalent in the Roman pantheon was Terra. So it's interesting. So we've got, this is the Greek or Roman, or the Greek, but it is the Roman equivalence version of that same myth, the same Sumerian myth. So we've got the in this case it's Uranus is the sky and Gaia is the earth, and they give birth to, it would be An and the Key with the Sumerian, and they gave birth to the Anunnaki. In this case it's Uranus and Gaia, and they give birth to the Titans. So the Titans would be the gods of the antediluvian times, and we talked about in a previous video as well how there was the death of the gods and how all the gods are wiped out at once. And so that would be the flood. It wiped out all the gods, the pagan gods of the past. So that's just how that same story plays out in the Greek mythology. And just seeing here in Genesis 6, there were giants in the earth in those days, but also after that, when the sons of God came in under the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Sons of God, daughters of men, men of renown. Uranus, Gaia, Titans. So Delphi. Delphi was one of the temples where Apollo was worshipped. Delphi, formerly called Pytho, is famous as the ancient sanctuary that grew rich at the seat of Pythia, the oracle who was consulted about important decisions throughout the ancient classical world. The ancient Greeks considered the center of the world to be in Delphi, marked by the stone monument known as the Omphalos navel. And we talked about the Axis Mundi before, the center of the world, and how it was sort of the connection between the earth and the sky, and how high places, the association with high places, and we talked about how skyscrapers are like that, and mountains are like that as well. And in Numbers 33, a bit about that. And the Lord spoke unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then ye shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all of their high places, and destroy all of their molten images, and quite pluck down... Sorry, did I read that wrong? Destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten images, and quite pluck down all their high places. I got excited. And ye shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land, and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it. So there's, this religion was going on, obviously at the time in Israel and Canaan, and God's saying, tear down, pluck down all their high places, their places of worship, places that are closer to their gods, I guess. So origins and location. Delphi is located in Upper Central Greece on the Multiplex Plateau along the slope of Mount Parnassus, so on a mountain, and includes the sanctuary of Apollo, the god of light, knowledge, and harmony, the site of the ancient oracle. In myths dating to the classical period of ancient Greece, Zeus determined the site of Delphi when he sought to find Satan. Of course, Apollo and Zeus, both Satan, but Zeus being the father of father of Apollo, determined the site of Delphi when he sought to find the center of his grandmother Earth, Gaia. He sent 2 eagles flying from the eastern and western extremities, and the path of the eagles crossed over Delphi, where the Omphalos, or navel of Gaia, was found. Earlier myths include traditions that Pythia, or the Delphic oracle, already was the site of an important oracle in the pre-classical Greek world. And just going back to that, it seems to be the case Satan's moved around, so it makes me wonder if I can't remember if I read it in the last... No, I'm going to read it coming up. There's a connection between the earth and the sky. It makes me wonder if God moves it around, and that's why Satan has to move around as well. It's just interesting to note. Because, Satan at this point is in Greece, but of course he was in Babylon in the past and other places. It's just interesting to note that. I don't know, but... So, earlier myths, including traditions that Pythia, or the Delphic oracle, already was the site of an important oracle in pre-classical Greek world, and rededicated from around 800 BC when it served as the major site during classical times for the worship of the god Apollo. Apollo was said to have slain Python, aka Draco, a serpent or dragon who lived there and protected the navel of the earth. And there's a lot to be said about Python or Draco or Tiamat or Leviathan or other things, but it's too much to get into, already pressed for time. Apollo's sacred precinct in Delphi was a pan-Helletic sanctuary where every 4 years, starting 586 BC, athletes from all over the Greek world competed in the Pythian Games, one of the 4 pan-Helletic games, precursors of the modern Olympics. The victors at Delphi were presented with a laurel crown, Stephanos, which was ceremonially cut from a tree by a boy who reenacted the slaying of the python. The inner Hestia hearth of the Temple of Apollo, in the inner Hestia, an eternal flame burned. I just thought that was interesting. That's where the Olympic Games come from. That's where the laurel wreath comes from as well. It's related to Apollo. And a bit of history there. Ancient Delphi. Delphi was, since ancient times, a place of worship of Gaia, the mother goddess, connected with fertility. So it's interesting how that comes up again. So Mount Parnassus, which is where this is located, It's a mountain of limestone in central Greece that towers above Delphi, north of the Gulf of Corinth, and offers scenic views of surrounding olive groves and countryside. According to Greek mythology, this mountain was sacred to Dionysus. And if we put on the family tree of Apollo, Dionysus is on that. So Apollo is on the left side and Dionysus a bit down. So I guess it's sort of a younger relation, a younger cousin, I guess. And the Dionysian mysteries. It was sacred to Apollo and the Corinth nymphs. It was home of the Muses. The mountain was also favoured by the Dorians. It suggests that the name derives from Parnassus, the possessive adjective of Luwian. Word pani meaning house or specifically temple. So the name effectively means mountain of the house of God. So interesting. So as far as the high place of the mountain of God and so the house of God in the Bible, Genesis 28. When Jacob went out from Beersheba, he went towards Haran. He lied. This is when he was going away from Esau. He annoyed Esau a bit by stealing his blessing. And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because stole his blessing and his birthright. Well, not stole, but you know what I mean. You've read the Bible. Because he tarried there all night because the sun was set, and he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, so it's interesting, the place where the angels are going up and down. The omphalos, the navel of the world, the axis mundi perhaps, or anaxis mundi. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the Lord God of Isaac. The land whereon thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And skipping down, Jacob waked out of his sleep, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. Down a bit, and he called the name of that place Bethel. But the name of the city was called Luz, or Luz at first. So Bethel means house of God, Beth meaning house, El meaning God. So Luz. Some people say that where Jacob slept this place was the Temple Mount, but there is a place in Israel, north of Jerusalem, called Bethel. So I don't know, but so we're looking at just Haran there, and if you look at the map between Beersheba and Haran, which was the journey that Jacob was going on, so the place where he slept would have been somewhere between there, and Jerusalem is between those places, and so is the place where Bethel is, north of Jerusalem. But anyway, when I was looking up Luz, I found this thing. It's sort of a Kabbalistic thing. It's not directly read. I just thought it was interesting. I'm just going to read it to you. This is from cityofluz.com. The city of Luz is an interdimensional city of higher consciousness that unites all branches of knowledge and fields of experience. Luz is the biblical site of Jacob's angelic dream, also known as the house of God and the gate to heaven. Luz is an impenetrable city in the land of Israel that can only be entered through a secret cave hidden by a hazelnut tree, a Luz tree. Because some sources say that, like Blue Letter Bible says that Luz means almond tree. So that's where that's coming from. Moreover, we are told that after it was conquered, another city was also named Luz. Was built in another eastern country, a virtual Shangri-La, where there is no death and only truth can be spoken. He built a city and called it Luz, and that is its name until this day. So I just thought that was an interesting thing, talking about, like, I'm not saying this is doctor or anything. I say this is very weird, but just some of the ideas are interesting. So you've got the navel of the world, the place where, and it'll be secret, the place where you go between heaven and earth, and the destination would be Shangri-La. It sounds like heaven to me. Only truth can be spoken. I guess you can only speak truth in heaven. We know that in New Jerusalem. And I just thought it was interesting. It's a weird website. I don't necessarily think you should go there. It looks very Kabbalistic and strange, but I just happened to come across it and thought I'd read it as an example, I suppose, of a modern distortion of the truth. Alexander the Great. Alexander III of Macedon, commonly known as Alexander the Great, was a king, Basileus, of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. and a member of the Argead dynasty. He was born in Pella in 356 BC and succeeded his father Philip II to the throne at age 20. He spent most of his ruling years an unprecedented military campaign through Asia and Northwest Africa. At the age of 30, he had created one of the largest empires of the ancient world, stretching from Greece to northwestern India. He was undefeated in battle and is widely considered one of history's most successful military commanders. And the last paragraph, Alexander's legacy includes the cultural diffusion and syncretism, which his conquests engendered, such as Greco-Buddhism. He founded some 20 cities that bore his name, most notably Alexandria in Egypt. Alexander's settlement of Greek colonists and the resulting spread of Greek culture in the East resulted in a new Hellenistic civilization, aspects of which were still evident in the traditions of the Byzantine Empire in the mid-15th century AD, and the presence of Greek speakers in Central and Far Eastern Anatolia until the 1920s. So a big empire. And we know this, of course, but just going over it. Alexander became legendary as a classical hero in the mold of Achilles. He featured prominently in the history and mythic traditions of both Greek and non-Greek cultures. He became the measure against which military leaders compared themselves, and military academies throughout the world still teach his tactics, often ranked among one of the most influential people in history. So early life and childhood in the second paragraph. Several legends surrounding Alexander's birth and childhood surround the birth and childhood. According to the ancient Greek biographer Plutarch, on the eve of the consummation of her marriage to Philip, Olympias dreamed that her womb was struck by a thunderbolt. Saw Satan as lightning fall from heaven. And lightning and thunder, Thor also another god associated with lightning, associated with Satan. So just interesting. Struck by a thunderbolt that caused flame to spread far and wide before dying away. Sometime after the wedding, Philip is said to have seen himself in a dream securing his wife's womb with a seal engraved with a lion's image. Plutarch offered a variety of interpretations of these dreams. That Olympias was pregnant before her marriage, indicated by the sealing of her womb. I wonder, who pregnant to, Or that Alexander's father was Zeus. Interesting. Apollo's father was Zeus. Zeus is Satan. Skipping down, there's plenty here. I'm going to run out of room and time here to get through everything. Alexander was raised in a manner of noble Macedonian youths, learning to read, play the lyre, musician, ride, fight, and hunt. Education. He was educated by Aristotle, the father of Western philosophy, and the conquest of ancient Persia, going down a bit, Egypt. Alexander advanced on Egypt in later 332 BC, where he was regarded as a liberator. He was pronounced son of the deity Ammon at the oracle of Siwa Oasis at the Libyan desert. Henceforth, Alexander often referred to Zeus Ammon as his true father. Interesting. And after his death, a currency depicted him adorned with the horns of a ram as the symbol of his divinity. And if we look at that coin there, the fall of the Empire of the East, a contemporary depiction of Alexander the Great by close aides. The reverse shows a seated Zeus Aetophoros. The physical appearance, and noted that he kind of looks like Apollo. If you've seen the statues and things of Apollo and of Alexander, he looks like Apollo. Greek biographer Plutarch describes Alexander's appearance as the outward appearance of Alexander is best represented by the statues of him which Lysippus made, and it was by this artist alone that Alexander himself thought it fit he should be modelled. For those peculiarities which many of his successors and friends afterwards tried to imitate, namely the poise of his neck, which was bent slightly to the left, and the melting glance of his eyes, this artist has accurately observed. Apelles, however, in painting him as a wielder of the thunderbolt, did not reproduce his complexion, but made it too dark and swarthy, whereof he was of a fair colour, as they say, like the Aryans, I suppose, and his fairness passed into ruddiness on his breast particularly, and his face. Now ruddiness, I don't know if that means red. Of course, Esau means he was red. I don't know if there's a connection there. Whereof he was of a fair colour, so past the ruddiness on his face, breast particularly in his face. Moreover, that a very pleasant odor exhaled from his skin, and that there was a fragrance about his mouth and all his flesh, so that his garments were filled with it, as we have read in memoirs of Aristoxenus. Greek historian Arrian described Alexander as the strong, handsome commander with one eye dark as the night and the one blue as the sky. Semi-legendary Alexander romance also suggests that Alexander exhibited heterochromia iridium, that one eye was dark and the other light. It's interesting that there's been a few musicians who have had that characteristic. David Bowie would be one, Marilyn Manson would be another, off the top of my head. It's interesting to know, one eye different to the other. So I'm going to read a bit from Daniel 8 here, because it's said by a lot of people that Alexander the Great was in this prophecy here, so I'm just going to read it. And he said, "Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed shall be. The ram which thou sawest, having two horns, are the kings of Media and Persia," that being the empire that came before the Greek Empire, which Alexander the Great conquered. "And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand out of the nation, but not in his power, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes," that will be Jesus, "but he shall be broken without hand." So it seems to be talking about the Antichrist here. So I have thought perhaps Trump was the Antichrist, but on reflection, I mean, I still don't know. We're still just putting the pieces together. It seems like Trump, at the moment, this is a guess. I don't know. Don't take this as doctrine, but I would guess, and we'll talk about this in another video because I don't have enough room in this one. And Trump would be more represented as the first beast, and then there's a second beast that comes up, and that would be, sounds like there's going to be somebody perhaps with one eye, one color, one eye, another color, who's fair in complexion and understands dark sentences. Maybe looks like Apollo or Alexander the Great. It seems to be the sort of the connection we're having here as the Antichrist, the religious figure who rises up, who embodies Satan, literally has the spirit of Satan, and just interesting to note those things. So Ammon came up. Alexander was declared the son of Ammon. So I'll go into that a little bit. Major ancient Egyptian deity who appears as the member of the Hermopolitan Ogdoad, the next paragraph. After the rebellion of Thebes against Hyksos and with the rule of Amhos I, Ammon acquired national importance, expressed as the fusion with the sun god Ra, Ammon-Ra or Ammon-Re. At the end of the next paragraph, his position as king of the gods developed to the point of virtual monotheism, where other gods became manifestations of him. With Osiris, Ammon-Ra is one of the most widely recognized Egyptian gods. So Ammon-Ra, or Ammon, kind of like how Apollo became to be the god of gods of the Greeks. God of gods. Same sort of is the case with Ammon-Ra. It's interesting. And Osiris we won't talk about in this video. How many spirits are there? I thought it was interesting to note how many spirits are there, because we're talking about in Ephesians 6, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So there seem to be multiple principalities and powers, multiple things, because on one hand, like these Satan would be the head, I guess, of our enemy. If Satan means enemy, so Satan or Lucifer or whatever that spirit is, the son of the morning, the whatever the actual name is, because he seems to have many names, the anointed cherub or whatever, the one who's kicked down, the dragon. He seems to be the head enemy, but there seems to be other enemies as well, like other bad spirits. We talk about Matthew 12 when he was brought And then he was brought unto him one possessed with the devil, blind and dumb, and he healed him, insomuch that the blind and dumb both spake and saw. And all the peoples were amazed and said, Is not this the son of David? But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, This fellow doth cast out demons by Beelzebub, the prince of devils. There's another name for Satan. And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then shall his kingdom stand? And if I by Beelzebub cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out? Therefore they shall be your judges. So it's interesting how... So there's multiple spirits working here, but there is the king of the spirits, the head bad dude. And yeah, just interesting to note that. So Abaddon, in Revelation 9:11, we've got the spirit of the angel of the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, in Greek Apollyon. We've talked about Apollyon, and now just a little bit on Abaddon. The Hebrew term Abaddon, meaning doom. Greek equivalent Apollyon, appear in the Bible as both the place of destruction and an angel of the abyss. The Hebrew Bible is used with reference to a bottomless pit, often appearing alongside the place Sheol, meaning the realm of the dead. Etymology. So related to Apollyon, to destroy, the destroyer. According to Brown Briggs lexicon, Abaddon's an intensive form of the Semitic root abad, to destroy, which occurs 184 times, Septuagint. Whereas Abaddon, Greek Apollyon comes from polemi, to destroy. Greek Apollyon, destroyer. So it basically means destroy. And I've got the... and going down to Judaism, Hebrew Bible, the term Abaddon appears 6 times in the Masoretic text. And you can see it there. I'll show you on a Blue Letter Bible if you want to look up those times. But basically, we've got Apollo, Abaddon means to destroy. So we've got this angel, the angel of destruction, coming out from the bottomless pit. And I'm not 100% certain if that's Satan or not, or if that's a different angel that gets released out of the bottomless pit. Haven't figured that out yet, but I'm just making these connections. We're making connections, not drawing conclusions at this point. So quickly, at the end, I just thought it was interesting. There's a quote from Oppenheimer talking about the destroyer of worlds. And I'm going to I'll put that quote in now, so I'll do that now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In the dead silence of the morning, at 5:29:45 Mountain War time, the Jornada del Muerto was bathed in an intense flash of a light that man had only seen from the stars.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Okay, this is the quote from Oppenheimer. That's when he developed the nuclear bomb, responding to that. And outside of CERN, there's a statue of Shiva, but it's what's called Natajas, where it talks about it, so there's multiple names for this god. Two most common forms of Shiva's dance, just a bit here. Two most common forms of Shiva's dance, the Lysa, the gentle form of dance associated with the creation of the world, and the Tandava, a vigorous form of dance associated with the destruction of weary worldviews, weary perspectives and lifestyles. In essence, the Lysa and the Tandava are just two aspects of Shiva's nature, for he destroys in order to create, tearing down to build again. So we've got another version of the, what's it called? Order out of chaos, the phoenix rising, the destruction of the old, the bringing in of the new. It's a different version of that. So I just thought that was interesting. We've got the destruction, the angel of destruction getting released out of the bottomless pit, and people seem to be worshipping that angel, and people were worshipping the cycle of life, the fertility gods, the destruction, and they're burning down and bringing up again. And just thought that interesting how it appears again at CERN. I mean, Oppenheimer's talking about it on the nuclear bomb, and so we've got these people behind the world, these pagans basically. They're all worshipping, and I'm not going to say definitively the Apollon or Apollyon. It definitely seems to be an association there between Satan and Apollo and Apollyon and all these things, but I'm not sure yet if this is Satan tricking people into worshipping destruction, or if Satan himself is that destruction. I don't know, and we'll just putting that out there. It's something to think about. So to finish off, and the Lord appeared in the tabernacle in a pillar of a cloud, and the pillar of the cloud stood over the door of the tabernacle. And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up, and go a-whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, whither they go to be among them, and will forsake me, and will break my covenant which I have made with them. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, Are not these evils come upon us, because our God is not among us? And I will surely hide my face in that day for all the evils which they shall have wrought. And in that they are turned unto other gods. My brain is starting to get fried. So that was intense. I just kept going. Basically, I kept finding links between things. I've got plenty more to say, but that's the problem with this topic. Hopefully, the general themes are starting to come through. I hope this helped you. Take it easy. Stay close to the Bible. Stay close to Jesus. But Jesus bless you and lead you to the truth. Amen.